So today we are looking at the top 10 players in each position for the best sort of value. Now, goalkeepers are very easy. To be honest, there is pretty much 10 to maybe 15 that you could get away with. I'd possibly say, like, we look at the likes of Pope in this and think 1.3k. Realistically, by now, we should be able to upgrade to someone like Martinez. Raya is obviously the next shout. You've got Mama Deshili, or Deshili, however you want to say, Devili. He's obviously coming in at now 13. Decent height, going in for Liverpool, so plenty of links across the board. So it is only a matter of time until you eventually find yourself with a Donnarumma, an Alisson, or a Courtois. They are kind of my top 3 gold goalkeepers, most definitely. Now, I've tried to keep as many heroes out of this because the pricing, I think, is value to some extent, and especially with someone like Howard, if you do manage to get them from, say, the Max 86 pack, it's not the worst. But in terms of buying them, I'd definitely be looking out. Now we're getting hero and icon upgrades. Icons will follow at some point soon. I would most definitely be waiting and just seeing where this market takes them, because obviously icons and heroes, they're always going to be slightly above their market price or slightly above what they should be in comparison to some golds, and with a slower power curve we might see them potentially dropping down quicker and golds just being the better option. And obviously the same for golds. I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy Donnarumma at 90,000 just to potentially lose coins in the future, but at being 89 rated, he will give you a solid shout, to say the least, and with champs around the corner, it might be worth having a look at some of these players. Now, obviously, when we do kind of go through the goalkeepers, I don't think there's really a bad option here. The goalkeepers are much better, which I think is a general consensus across this game, and hopefully they do stay this way. But the playstyle plus across any position is going to be massive. Going against a Pope versus a Raya or a Donnarumma or an Alisson is always going to be interesting because of that playstyle plus as well. So it's definitely going to have a better value for you. So if you're looking for coins, head over to eldorado.gg. There is huge amounts of verified sellers on Eldorado, and there is a money back guaranteed by Trade Shield. If that's not enough, there is 24/7 live support and also plenty of reviews across websites that will definitely put your mind at ease. And as always, before you check out, make sure that you are using the code JT11 for 5% off every single order. Back to the video. We then move into the fullback spot, which, very similar to the likes of goalkeepers, there's only so many. Yes, there's a few that I'd be questionable to say, like you could put Valverde as a right back if you really want. I wouldn't necessarily be going out and spending $500,000 on him. But when we do look at considerably my 2 top left back and right backs in Nuno Mendes and Hakimi, in kind of retrospect to like a Carlos Alberto that was 1.6 mil yesterday, 200k doesn't seem that bad anymore. Now, obviously, there is a lot of kind of up and downs. I think left backs have got the better shout here. Undogi is a fantastic starting one. You've obviously then got Kirkers at the top at 6k. You've got the likes of Robinson, I believe, from Fulham, the American left back, coming in at a couple of k. They are nice starters. They may not be end game. They may not be in your team for a month, but they're going to be great to start with if you don't necessarily have coins or don't want to spend it too much on your fullbacks. They will definitely get you through the first couple of weeks. Then we look at the likes of Baude. I think is fantastic depending on where the rest of your team goes. We then see Mendy going up. I think left back for the Prem is a little bit more questionable. But then you kind of look at your Batcher. You then see kind of like Ola at the bottom there for the right back side of stuff. You see a bit of Frimpong, who I think is good, but could do with an upgrade as well. I don't think he's the final product at all. Like, I would much prefer Hakimi at this point. Maybe even a bit of Llorente, but Llorente is kind of an interesting one just because of that versatility. Now, obviously, Reece James was going to be a fantastic option for everybody if you did manage to complete him, as right backs, they are hard to come by. In terms of the best, there's a few that you can get, but they are pricey. If you're looking for a standard, maybe few untradeable cards, if you've managed to kind of work up enough fodder at that point to get James, he was an easy no-brainer to be able to actually finish. Unless you did get a Frimpong, a Llorente, a Hakimi, then you kind of question, is he going to be Gauntlet? Is he going to be a potential change in team? Are you just wasting the 40k? So it does depend on who you've managed to pack or who you've managed to pack untradeable, because a lot of these, if I got Hakimi, I'd probably end up selling him, especially during this weekend league. I can imagine that the prices hopefully will go slightly up. I feel like we'll see a little bit of a market uptake, but these are kind of my personal favorites that I've used so far. Now with centre-backs, there's a lot of choice. From top end to bottom, I still think Virgil is one of my personal favourites. One that has actually really kind of done well now bringing him back into the team. I had not necessarily a kind of a bad vibe about him, but when it came to Konate to start with, he just really didn't do too much. I've brought him back in the team. He's been actually fantastic ever since. So maybe my defensive protocol. Who knows? But if we do look at the kind of bottom end sort of vibe, you're looking at a Tomore. You could obviously go with like a Konza if you're going really, really cheap. But then kind of that step up. Arejo has been fantastic for a lot of people. Morello coming in with the pace side of stuff. Then even just taking one step up from there. I think Hincapié with that playstyle plus is going to be decent enough in that sort of medium area. We're not talking hundreds of thousands. We're talking 30k. It's not terrible. And even then, looking at that top shelf, Militao, once his inform's gone, should hopefully start dropping a little bit more. Van de Ven obviously coming in with crazy amounts of pace. He will be an interesting one because I think he's going to be up and down. And Marquinhos, a solid option, especially when he does have Pacho, who is unbelievable. For 100k, Pacho is outrageously good. It is just purely link basis that makes it a little bit harder. So you almost need PSG players or Ligue 1 players because there isn't necessarily a crazy amount of Ecuadorians that you really want in your club to start with. And then you've got your fan favourites, your Celebra Virgil. I still think they are going to be the absolute top two pairing. There is loads of others that you can go. Like I say, heroes and icons are going to be in an abundance, but we're kind of just focusing on the golds to start with, as icons and heroes are not necessarily too easy to come across, like Virgil is. But in general, I think centre-backs, as long as you're good with your defensive ability, the pairings are definitely vast. There's not necessarily a top two that are guaranteed to be in every single week at this point. Maybe in a few months, maybe in a few weeks, there might be a set team that everybody goes for, but with the gauntlet, with other modes, hopefully there is going to be still this path of a lot of players that you can use at that absolute top ability. Now the midfield, I've kind of chucked everybody together because I do think there is a lot of different ways to kind of grind out this midfield 3, 2, 4. You got DMs, CMs, cams. There's a lot of everywhere, and I think at the moment we are seeing a lot more DMs, CMs. I'm seeing more of a striker that goes into that cam role and plays almost like a shadow striker, which can definitely work, but I've got one person in mind and he is a striker and he has been excellent for me, so he's definitely in that list. When I kind of look at the lower end here, we're looking at a Camavinga. We're then starting to see a bit of Tonali in there. Even Kimmich, I must admit, for 30,000 and 89 rated card, massive upgrade for him. Like, I don't know what he did in the Bundesliga last year, but a massive clawback for him. I thought him and Goretzka were kind of out and down for the count, to be honest. They seem to be just getting lower and lower each kind of year, and suddenly we've got an 89 again, so absolutely phenomenal to see him. Again, he's going to be a starting sort of card. He's going to require either Germans or obviously Bayern Munich in the team, which I think there's still a good amount. I've tried to flex a lot of leagues into this as well, trying to pick one or two from each kind of component. We then have the PSG boys, which will do very well for Marquinhos or Pacho. You've obviously got João Neves and Vitinha coming in for more of the narrow formation. I do think their passing ability together is absolutely brilliant. Vitinha may be a little bit too expensive. I think value-wise, maybe if he shot down like 20k, I could possibly kind of get on board with that, but he is very good. I did sell mine in the end, I think for about 95, so he has come down a little bit, but in general, I kind of expected him to be as good as he was. In terms of dribbling, exquisite. Yes, the kind of up and down motion, like the shooting, the defensive ability was okay, nothing crazy, and it's why I like the João Neves. He's kind of got that dribbling ability to some extent, but he's got a lot of defensive and physical ability as well, which does lead him very nicely into a bit of Vitinha. Whereas the other side, you look at the two CDM boys in Caicedo and Rodri. Obviously, Rodri with I've said it now. Rodri with the tiki-taka is fantastic, but you've got to play him in a certain way. He's in my team currently purely for the passing game, but his defensive attributes are fantastic. You kind of keep him as that holding, deep line playmaker who stays at the back. He's very good at that. He gets very little chance to go out of position. He really holds his own. And yes, he's not going to outbeat somebody, so you're not putting him as the defensive cover, most definitely. But if he's there, he can definitely make the challenge, which he does kind of build up that play. I've got Patry, who's in the middle right now. who is more my box crasher. Somebody that goes from the DM role, runs up. One thing I have known, stamina definitely gets absolutely battered with that. So something to always rely on when it comes to the midfield. It's interesting to see what different roles can really affect a card. But in general, Patry and him have been very good in them DM roles with then a cam in front of them. It does add that element of passing to be able to bring that ball forward. Obviously, then we've got the top line. I think Reyners is going to be one of my favourite midfielders so far. I used the cornerstone yesterday, and oh, he feels good. Like, De Jong is just the same as every year. He's always this slick midfielder. He's got a bit of both. Yes, the kind of stats on the actual board don't read crazy, but he's very good at playing that middle role. And Reyners is pretty much that exact same card in the Prem. They're quick, they're great on the ball, the passing is very accurate, and he's just a big threat to have in that midfield. I think them two together are a great pairing. If you're looking just for two solid centre mids, maybe not crazy attacking, maybe not crazy defensive, but you can have them there, and you've got a solid back line, you've got great attacking options. I mean, they are going to be two perfect ones. And I think Pedri coming in as well, if you was trying to go with maybe two of the Barca lads, you've got an exquisite passer, somebody that could play that narrow formation effortlessly, someone that could play the cam role and feed in your three attackers in the left, right and striker. Very, very good. So midfield is most definitely up there with the best of them. I think there's some actually really good cards this year. Normally I'm kind of scratching my head to think who could be pairings. You can find singulars, like you could easily pick out a Bellingham, a Valverde, you could pick out a Reyners, but where do they actually match? And there is at the minute a lot of pairings in teams. Now obviously you've got Reyners, Rodri, you've obviously got Pedri and also De Jong. You've obviously got the two PSG boys. You've got potentially the Real Madrid with obviously like Bellingham, Camavinga, Tchouameni. There's a lot, or even Valverde as well. There's lots of players that do work together, and even Kimmich with the Goretzka SBC. So it does work very, very well in your favour. Now I do think left wing this year is absolutely unmatched. There is some very good right wings, but I think they are more at that top end. We can look throughout the entirety of this kind of value setting for the left wing from a Nico Williams, who is brilliant. 200k is expensive, and I would say most definitely to wait until that cornerstone is gone, because we might see then a bit more of a price correction. At the moment, there is no kind of price. There's no markets for the gold, purely for the fact that he's in promo at the moment. So I would definitely be waiting for him. But if he does drop down any amount, he is one of the best left wings in the game. Now, there is cheaper options. I think everybody's kind of gotten that hype of Pinner with obviously the low driven plus, the weak foot. She is very good at what she can do, and she's quick, she's good on the turn. She is most definitely somebody that you're not necessarily going to be like, for instance, a Chawinga, a kind of Salma, who is just bursting with pace. But if you can get it inside forward with that low driven, I mean, she's going to be absolutely brilliant there. So for me, one of my personal favourites. Obviously, Rashford coming in with his kind of just ability for an Evo. I think the other one that kind of would be thrown into that shout would be someone like Doku. Again, another one that would actually be pretty decent across the board, in my opinion. Then you've got the likes of Swanson, Hemp, Liao. You've got plenty of options. Even then throwing in a Gordon as a very, very cheap option. Just somebody that's got a bit of pace, kind of like how Adama's kind of used. He's just get down a byline, pass it into maybe a better striker, a cam into then a striker. They can do that very, very well. Obviously then Diaz, very much like Nico Williams. Solid ability, I do think, for me. But wherever you want to play your left wing, if you want them kind of pacier down the side, if you want them kind of bridging in as kind of like a left forward, I think there's a lot that can definitely do a solid amount of damage this year. Now over to the right-hand side, obviously the two top boys have got to be in there. I think right wing, like I say, there's still a good amount that you can go with. Obviously, you look at Diana, you look at Pulisic, who I think is a very decent card across the board. Rodrigo, Doué, Rodman, lots of nice options, but the top is definitely Salah and Yamal. Them two are very, very nice in their own right. I do think Yamal is going to be more of the dribbler, whereas Salah's definitely going to do well with that finesse. You get him inside that box. Finesse is very good within the box. Outside the box, if you manage to get the precision shooting right, will be very effective, but it's up and down now. They've definitely made the consistency of it not crazy compared to what we've seen in previous years, and to be honest, defending seems to be a lot more bunched at the moment, so you will find if you do cut in, you're kind of cutting into 3 players at one point, so it's always interesting to get that break away. If we are looking at kind of the cheaper options, Pulisic, very nice. Obviously, wait for the inform to go. I think Inaki Williams comes in with great pace like Gordon. Same with Diaby with a quick step plus. And then kind of one step up, I've really been liking Mbeumo with the game changer plus. You've obviously got then Adeyemi with the quick step plus, who are both very good cards in their own right. Like obviously Adeyemi needs a bit more shooting, whereas Mbeumo has got that ability as well. Doesn't quite have that same level of pace, but is definitely up there. And I do think for me, Doué has been one of them ones. I got him untradeable from the 83 pack, and he's been brilliant in bursts. Again, needs some links. You could potentially get just plenty of French players in there. He's not necessarily too difficult to get onto Chem, but he is most definitely a dribbler. The trickster adds that level where you can go for the fake shot, drop it inside. He's got a bit of pace. 83 seems to be lacking in comparison to what he feels, but he's most definitely an option you could look at. And Diani, I think, is Diani, to be honest. I mean, she's got the pace, she's got the finesse, she's just a cheaper Salah, basically. She's always been very, very nice in this game. And then probably the one above everybody else, Hansen obviously comes in as a crazy price, in my opinion. Which then leaves us with the strikers. Now, strikers, again, are a bunch that I must admit you've got to pay a little bit extra for. If you're going to get somebody that you pay a lot of money for to get you more goals, you are better off putting a lot more money into that than it is a left back, a right back. Yes, centre backs I think are important. Centre mids are going to be important. Strikers are going to be what gets you goals. If you can't score, but you can maybe defend, it's a 0-0 at best. But there is value across the board. I think someone like Ekitike is going to be a great starter striker. Even throwing in a few of the left wings. I know Rashford can play striker as a very bog standard is just easy. It's an easy way to go for it. If I was going to say you could pick anywhere from 0 to 200,000 coins, Marmoush is, for me, the best valued striker that you could personally get. He has been incredible. I've got a partnership of Isaac and Marmoush up front, and Marmoush has been wonderful. No playstyle plus, which is even better that he's doing so well in comparison to Isaac. Now, don't get me wrong, Isaac's still an absolute boy. Like, the finesse shot in the box is wonderful, but Marmoush from that cam shadow striker role has bagged so many goals already. He's such a great value. And I do think there is value in a Martinez if you're running a Serie A team. Obviously, a Pender could be the partnership. You've obviously got the two Madrid boys. I think Griezmann has his own right in that cam role. Alvarez, I've seen more and more recently. Yes, I do think there's a certain way to play with him as well. Press Proven's obviously doing decent, but you can get them two together and do very, very well. One that I was always very questionable about is going to be Gyökeres. I like him. I don't think he's a bad card. I think he's very overpriced at the moment compared to what he truly gives, but I do think you do get a good amount of value back from him. So it's a hard one. Like, I'd be looking somewhere around Isaac's sort of price for me personally. I think that's where I'd kind of be really happy with him, and I don't think he's that far away. Haaland's obviously 140. He's just an absolute bully going forward. The low driven plus is wonderful. Kane is kind of on his own merit, same as kind of Haaland, but a little bit less on that pace, or considerable, a lot less on that pace. If you can get the hold-up striker to him, you get some of the fast wingers around him and just knock it into him on open space, he's always going to score. His shooting is next to none one of the best, and he will definitely prove that. And then you've kind of got this, I don't know if is she Wilson or Smith at the minute. You've got Sophia Wilson or Smith, the American striker, obviously more priced than a lot of these, and she is just wonderful in herself. And then you kind of go for the cheaper option. You look at Peugeot, Katoto, I believe there is another Chewinga that can play up front, and there's a few of the kind of women players that have got something. I just don't think they kind of compare to your likes of your Marmoush, your Isaac, your Apenda. They are kind of my personal favourites. So that's going to be the top 10, 11, however many we've done in each of them. The values I've kind of gone from low to high to medium if I can, and there is obviously a lot of players that you can go above this as well, which I think everybody could kind of guess. There's no point me putting an Mbappe in a value list because you got to have 3 or 4 million to get him. But make sure you leave a comment down below if there's anybody you would like to recommend to the audience, and I'll catch you all for that next one. Peace.